I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Ms. Roughton, I found your testimony very compelling when it came to how brain science ought to inform proper literacy instruction. It seems to me the fallacy of some of these discredited approaches like whole language or 3Qism or whatever we want to call it is that it assumes that students can learn literacy or written language sort of in the same way they learn spoken language, kind of by osmosis. But that, as you explained, that's not true because the brain is hardwired to acquire oral language skills and to generalize from limited inputs in a way that is not true when it comes to written language. So could you just tell us a little bit more about the problems with these alternative approaches that have been in vogue for too long?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you shared, approaches like balanced literacy and the 3Qing just came out of this incorrect belief that children learn how to read naturally. And if we could just fill our classrooms with books and have a word-rich environment, that children would just pick up reading effortlessly. And we now know and have known since the National Reading Panel published The Science of Literacy in 2000 that this is not accurate, that the brain is not wired to learn how to read, and it has to be explicitly taught in our schools. So the danger of districts and schools that are still utilizing these outdated practices like 3Qing and balanced literacy is that we're promoting guessing. So if I could give you an example in a kindergarten class that is still using balanced literacy might be doing a read aloud, and the sentence is that the baby is, and there's an unfamiliar word. And so the teacher might instruct the students to guess what this word could be looking at contextual clues or looking at the picture. And if the picture was a baby sleeping, a child might guess sleeping. But what if the word was actually napping, dreaming, resting? So if I focused on phonics and foundational skills, I could have my students decode and sound out that word, understanding that N begins with N, A, P, napping, and we could sound it out. And so what we see, the aftermath of this, is children that have been guessing in the primary grades where we should have been focused on foundational learning, is we have these widened gaps in comprehension, whereas text gets harder in third grade and above, guessing strategies just completely fall apart. And this is particularly true for our students that are at risk, for students that have learning differences.
So fortunately, we've seen a return to the foundational skills as the primary method, at least in the laws of many states. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that entails? I think everyone's familiar with phonics, but it's more than just that, right?
Yes, so phonics is certainly essential and critical, but the science of reading actually outlines 5 pillars, phonics being one. But I like to share that we want to think about these pillars as pieces of a rope, and they all need to be intertwined and working together for true reading success. So phonics is a critical component, but we must also be developing phonological awareness, rhyming, doing syllables, changing the smallest unit of sound, we call it a phoneme, changing beginning, middle, ending sounds of words. While we're doing this and teaching letter sound correspondence or phonics, we also need to be building academic vocabulary. So in a kindergarten class, I might be learning how to decode simple words like sun and mat, but I also need to be introduced to high-level academic vocabulary like ecosystems, perseverance, what do these words mean? And then through that, I need to be putting sounds together to read words, words together to read sentences, to build fluency, to develop automaticity. And then when those 4 pillars come in hand, I need less brain power as a child to decode, and now I can make that shift to focusing on the 5th pillar, which is comprehension. So they all need to be working together for our children to have true literacy success.
And finally, I know that your organization has been very successful when it comes to teacher training. So could you just expound a little on how critical it is that teachers have the tools for proper literacy instruction?
Yeah, absolutely. I think supporting our teachers is so essential. And it's not just giving them a one-stop shop training, it's ongoing and continuous support where teachers are looking at their classroom data and assessments and making those informed decisions. We know that we can't just give teachers great resources. You know, those resources just can sit on a shelf and get dusty. And if we want them to use, especially new resources that they might be unfamiliar with, we have to give them that training and support to go with it.
Thank you very much. And as you said in your introduction, we know what works. And so now the task is just to make sure that, that every child in this country has access to the instruction that we know does work. I'll now recognize